Sorry, I'm not able to be there to talk in live with you guys today, but hopefully this presentation gets across most of what we need to. My name is Michael. I'm the Business Development Manager for OSK Property here in Melbourne. I will be in Singapore in a couple of weeks as well, ahead of another presentation that we're doing in conjunction with PropNex Singapore. But what we'll go over today is just very briefly a little bit about the location, the development, and a few of the fundamentals that are affecting the property market in Australia, but in Melbourne in particular. So again, we're OSK Property, so you're dealing directly with the developer. We are a Malaysian business. We've been established for over 60 years. Very strong financial services background, and we've since evolved into hospitality, construction, investment, and obviously property development as well. Extremely important these days that you do deal with a strong, reputable company when buying anything really, but in particular when you're buying a property. Lots of builders are finding it very difficult. Lots of developers are finding it very difficult, especially post-COVID, when the development finance world has tightened up quite a lot. It's certainly become even more important to deal with a strong, financially sound company. So again, OSK have a very strong background. We have a almost 50% share or partnership with the Malaysian EPF. The EPF is Malaysia's largest and only superannuation fund. They manage a lot of money and funds in Malaysia, but they also don't go into projects that are perhaps a little bit more risky or dubious. So we've got a very strong relationship with them, and they are a stakeholder in our overall development. That does give a lot of people a lot of confidence that the project will go ahead, because the EPF does not go into projects on off the cuff. The national economy for Australia. So we've come out of a very challenging period with COVID, but we now have gone back to a AAA credit rating. So our credit rating is excellent for Australia. So the country can borrow money very effectively internationally and also repay that money. And that's important when you're growing. If the country can't borrow money or can't borrow funds, then you start to lose investment into key infrastructure areas. So Australia, again, very well managed financially, and we have got that AAA credit rating back. We've got a very resilient economy as well. So we've had lots of economic growth over about 28 years. And the only period that stopped that was that COVID pandemic year, which stopped positive economic growth. But overall, it's a very, very well managed country from a financial point of view. We are very proficient with debt management, and that of course enables us to have more money and to hopefully invest into a better future for our residents and our cities. Again, we don't want to be in a situation where the country is running out of money to spend and we can't borrow money. Then you start to lose out on key infrastructure, etc. So again, when you're buying property, it's important that you focus not just on the property that you're buying, but how well managed is the country and how well managed is the state. If those things aren't very well managed, then the end value of your property could be adversely affected as well. I'm going to assume that everyone listening to this has been to Australia, or at least hopefully to Melbourne, but if not Melbourne, then at least to Australia. It is a very large country. We often put this slide in Singapore or Malaysia just to show the sheer size of Australia compared to Singapore. Now that might be a little bit, I mean, it's obviously not a direct comparison because Singapore is a very small island state, but we are a lot larger than obviously Singapore and most of Southeast Asia. Most of our people, however, live in our two smallest states. So yes, Australia is a large country, but most of our capital cities, in fact, all of our capital cities are along the coast. You can't really live in the central part of Australia because it's effectively a desert, not very appealing from a lifestyle point of view. 60% of our population live in our two smallest states, which is New South Wales and Victoria. And about 80% of the people in those states live in our two largest capital cities, which is Melbourne and Sydney. Just recently, the Australian population went over 27 million people. Melbourne has just surpassed Sydney as being the most populated capital city in Australia. So Sydney or New South Wales is still the most populated state, but Melbourne is now the most populated capital city. And that's put a lot of pressure on rentals and property in general, which Baden, our leasing director from MSQP, will discuss a little bit later on. But this has certainly contributed to the drastic shortage we have of property in Melbourne. These are just a couple of articles, or a couple of headlines that we grabbed, showing that Melbourne has now just gone over Sydney in terms of our capital city population, and we've grown by over 10% in just the last 12 months. So it's been extremely rapid population growth for the city and the state. Melbourne's led the nation for over 15 years, so it's not just the last couple of years. It's not just since COVID that this has happened. Melbourne, since 2005, 2006, has always led the nation in terms of population growth. It's got a number of factors that lead to the place being so popular, which we'll discuss in just a minute. But it's not a new phenomenon. It's something that we've seen in Melbourne since the early 2000s, that it's been a very popular place to come and live. Post-pandemic, it's obviously been accelerated. So if we're expecting about 280,000 additional residents between last year and the end of this year, over 280,000 new skilled migrants coming into the state, and that leads the nation as well. On top of that, we've got very strong interstate migration. So Victoria's always been known as the place to be in terms of events and lifestyle. It's always been known as the state of attraction. So we've had that phrase coined for a number of years now. And a key figure, I guess, when people move to a new capital city or a new country, they look at affordability. Jobs are important, we need to have a job, but how affordable is the place? So Melbourne, in terms of Sydney, is around about 25 to 30% more affordable from a commercial and a residential leasing point of view. So we're seeing lots of businesses and companies and migrants move into Melbourne as opposed to Sydney, just purely from the fact that it's a lot more affordable than New South Wales is at the moment. Victoria's forecasting for the next 25, 30 years that we're going to hit somewhere around about 10 million residents. So that would make us the fastest growing state in the country by quite a long way. And of course, if you're buying property, that's the most important thing. If your population isn't growing, there's not much pressure being put on property rentals or prices. So population growth is the key in terms of having any sort of movements in rentals or pricing. And of course, you're familiar with that in Singapore. Singapore is a drastic example because you're a much smaller place. So if you get a strong population growth in Singapore, it's just accentuated. And hence you've got the pricing that you have now in Singapore, because it's got lots of positives. It's well managed, it's stable, it's safe. But the pricing now certainly reflects that as well. So from 22 to 24, we're expecting somewhere around 280,000 additional people in Victoria. So that's over 40% of the country's migration numbers. Potentially 7 million people in the next 6 to 7 years, again, which could make us the most populated Australian state. And just these next 3 points, it used to be that all Australians would live in houses. That was the phrase that was often thrown around the last 10, 15, 20 years. But nowadays, we're seeing a lot of people make very deliberate lifestyle changes, and they're choosing to live in more higher density, well-located property or apartments or condos, which probably wasn't the case a couple of decades ago. But nowadays, with having an aging population, the baby boomer market is now coming into retirement years. Over 4 million new retirees will come onto the market, so to speak, in the next 10 or 20 years. And they don't need to have a large house with a big backyard or a swimming pool or 4 or 5 bedrooms. They will value a location, something that's lower maintenance, more accessible, and a greater lifestyle appeal. My parents are in that same situation. They're looking at selling the large 4 or 5 bedroom home that I grew up in, because there's only 2 of them living there, and they don't want to be mowing a backyard or cleaning gutters. The pool isn't being used anymore, etc., etc. So they're going into more of an apartment condo type living. The Generation Xer is my generation, and we're working longer hours and working different hours. I want to be close to where I work and where I socialize. I don't want to have to spend an hour or 2 commuting to get to work, which is 5 days a week or 6 days a week sometimes as well. So that Generation X is looking at that balance between being near work and near where they can have a good lifestyle as well. Centennials, the last one there, people born in 2000 plus. we're in danger of sort of having a generation of renters to an extent in Australia. A lot of people are thinking that perhaps the property market is too difficult to get into now. I would always tell people what's more difficult. I mean, paying rent for the next 30 or 40 or 50 years, or taking a mortgage and buying a property. But Centennials seem to be more focused on perhaps buying a car, or perhaps looking at the new TVs, new phones, all the new things that don't really matter that much. But they're looking at these material things over perhaps buying a property. And that's probably not going to be a good thing for them in the next 20 or 30 years, because things won't get any easier. The first property I bought was what I thought was very expensive in 2004. And now 20 years later, it seems dirt cheap. And that's sort of what happens. 10 or 20 years go past and the property market moves a bit, and things look relatively cheap of what we could have bought them for 15 or 20 years ago. Now, we all have those stories. And sometimes you need somebody to push you into a property, to push you to purchase, which has happened with me. My father said, "You've got to buy something." So I did. And then I regretted it for the first year or two when I was having higher repayments and lower rent. And I thought, it's not so good. But then a few years go past and rent goes up and the market moves, and you wish you could have bought 2 or 3 of them at that price. So again, we need to try to get our Centennials to think about buying property. A large portion of them aren't doing it, which is certainly good if you own property, because you're going to have a very strong local rental market too. Why do people choose Melbourne? My father migrated to Australia in the early 80s from Europe, and he chose Australia or Melbourne for all of those reasons. The lifestyle was good, it was diverse, it was a stable place to live, it was safe. The economy was pretty vibrant as well. So again, they started a small business, and having a good economy was important for them. And even education, way back in the early 80s, was also held quite highly, the education in Australia. It's always been a key drive for people to come here. Certainly no different for Singapore. A lot of Singaporeans that don't want to study locally, or they can't get into NUS, for example, they will look abroad. And a lot of them choose Australia because it is a similar time zone. It's not as far as going to the US or to Europe. And now the Australian currency is at a point where it makes it even more affordable to send your kids to study here. You're getting a 10% over discount on your tuition fees just by coming to Australia in the last year or two, since the Australian dollar has become a little bit softer. How long that continues, who knows? But certainly from just a pure currency swap point of view, it makes it a very good time and a very attractive time to get into the Australian market. Very briefly on the state economy in Victoria, we've got a very diverse economy as well that we'll touch on in just a second. But Victoria is a very small state. It's only about 3% of the country's land mass, but it contributes about a quarter of the economic activity for the nation. We've also got a very good credit rating, a very strong jobs market, and a very low unemployment rate. So all those basic economic factors are extremely strong for the state. And again, it's important when you're buying property. You need to be into a strong, safe, stable economy where people have jobs and can hopefully pay the rents that you ask for. Lots of money being spent as well. So we've had an $85 billion infrastructure spend the last year, 2023. And Victoria is now Australia's best performing economy. And that was based on the CommSec report, which is by the Commonwealth Bank. I won't read all of these out. You can read those on the screen yourselves or take a screenshot. But we've got a lot of business associated events here in Victoria, and even more so now the last couple of years since that Sydney price increase has happened. Commercial areas in Sydney are very expensive. Expat housing and rentals are very expensive. So it's just made Melbourne a much more attractive choice for a lot of multinational companies to come into Victoria. We are a national financial services hub. So we've got 2 of our big 4 banks have their corporate headquarters in Melbourne. They all used to be in Sydney, going back around about 15 years. Now we've got 2 of them here in Victoria, in Melbourne. And we are known as being a world fintech hub as well. So we do rank number 9 in terms of the global world fintech hub. On the back of fintech, we've got a very large IT precinct in Docklands. So Docklands has a huge working population as well. They employ over 160,000 people that work in that IT area. R&D, lots of R&D, lots of agriculture. People don't realise how much agriculture comes from Victoria. Almost 30%, almost 25% of the country's agricultural output comes from the state of Victoria. And again, we're only 3% of the country's land mass, but we contribute a quarter of the country's agriculture. So that's a very key economic driver for us. At the bottom there, we've got a number of other industries. One of the main ones, or the main one, is education. So 30% of Australia's total international students are enrolled in Victorian higher education facilities. And that contributes lots and lots of money to the state, lots of jobs, and it's certainly the largest services industry for our state for over the last decade. We are an economic centre, so the Port of Melbourne is Australia's busiest container port. Melbourne Airport now welcomes the most international arrivals of any other capital city in Australia. So for the last 5 years, we've had the most international arrivals coming through Tullamarine Airport in Melbourne. Southern Cross train station is the largest train station in Victoria. It's a 16-platform train station, has its own hotel, its own food court, its own shopping centre attached to it. You can get everywhere in Australia from that train station. So again, the Port of Melbourne, the airport and the train station, all of those major areas, or the largest ones in the country, are all in Victoria. And universities that we touched on. So we are voted as being the best university city in Australia. That's based on the 2023-2024 rankings. And we're currently ranked number 4 globally. Melbourne University is still Australia's #1 university. So we've been in the top, I think it's the top 15 or top 20 globally for the last 15 years. But Melbourne's home to 7 of the world's top universities. So again, higher education is very highly regarded here. And also a lot of top high schools, not just higher education, but even secondary schools, high schools, primary schools. The level of education across the board is very highly regarded, right from a preschool level all the way up to tertiary. And of course, a massive economic benefit. Around about $7 billion was the 21-22 contribution. It's almost $7 billion again in 22-23. We often also look at retaining a lot of that foreign talent that studies here. So a lot of international students that come to Victoria and Melbourne to study, a lot of them may want to stay or seek employment or postgraduate positions after studying here. So we have a very strong position in being able to look at these international skilled applicants and then basically pick whatever we're missing in terms of our economy. We can plug those gaps through the international talent pool through our universities. So again, universities are really important in growing your local, I guess your local talent, and then filling up whatever gaps you might be having in your local economy. Singapore's no different as well. When you go for an employment pass in Singapore, I had 3 employment passes in Singapore. They really want to make sure that you're bringing something different that a local can't supply. If the company can supply a local to do the job, then you should be employing a local. It's the same principle with this. If we can employ a local or a local can do that job, then we will. But we can use the university side of things to hopefully vet our applicants, and then pick the best ones from the foreign talent and plug our gaps. So again, it's a very, very smart way to grow your local intellect. And of course, the ultimate sports city. Melbourne's 5 times the winner of being the ultimate sports city. We have lots of major events. Our football finals are held every year at our Melbourne Cricket Ground. That's the largest stadium in Australia, actually. It's one of the largest football stadiums in the world. The capacity is almost 100,000 people. Of course, the Australian Open Tennis every January and February. That's in Melbourne. The horse races, the Flemington Melbourne Cup is the race that stops the nation. That's held in Victoria every year as well. And of course, the Grand Prix, which just passed. So all of these events bring a huge amount of people, and people spend money. And that's very important for our local tourism and our local economy. Just last year, we had over 90 million visitors to Victoria, and they spent about $36 billion. So it's a massive economic input into the state. When you consider that the country has 27 million people as a population, our state attracted 90 million visitors. So again, that's a massive amount of tourism coming into Victoria, and certainly a massive economic benefit. Of course, lifestyle, 7 years in a row, Melbourne was voted the most livable city in the world. So 2011 up to 2017, based on a number of factors. I won't read all of them out because it's quite a lengthy report, but we received perfect scores for healthcare, education, infrastructure, culture, environment. The cultural side of things is interesting. One in four Melburnians was born outside of the country, and 1 in 3 speak a second language at home. So I'm one of those. I wasn't born in Australia, and I don't speak English to my parents. So we are a very multicultural place. It's just the last decade or two, it's been more North Asian, Southeast Asian migration that's dominated. But you go back into the early 80s and the 70s, it was more Central European migration. Now what we're seeing is more Eastern European migration, some Indian migration. It always seems to float up and down and go to different sort of parts of the world, I guess. But whatever the case is, Melbourne is a very multicultural place to live. We're currently ranked number 3 in terms of most livable cities in the world. So we've got an international appeal year in, year out. Most of our cities do. But Melbourne is the only city to win that award 5 times or more. Now, just very briefly on the Melbourne property market the last couple of years. Melbourne apartment launches sort of peaked in 2016, 17, around there, when we had almost 24,000 apartment launches. So these are not 24,000 projects, but 24,000 dwellings. So total units were launched in that year. What's then happened is that the global financial situation became increasingly restricted for developers, and launches started to go down. Then 2020, we had the COVID pandemic, and things got even tighter from that point of view. So post 2020, we've had a very gradual reduction in apartment launches. And on top of that, well, to coincide with that, completions also came down. So if you have less launches, it only makes sense that completions are also going to be less. So we've had our launches coming down, our completions coming down, but our population growing at record levels. It's no real surprise that we have an absolute rental shortage, and that rental shortage is predicted to be at a very short level up until the next sort of 4 to 5 years at least. So if you're buying a property, it's not just a short-term phenomenon. We're sort of gradually, we're gradually digging our hole even deeper as we're getting more and more migrants, but our completions are just getting less. You're certainly not going to have a problem finding a potential tenant for your property. Again, Baden will cover the rental side in a few more slides later on, but it's certainly a very strong rental market. Vacancy rates, very briefly, Baden will be able to give you some updated figures on this, but the vacancy rate's been hovering around that 1% mark for almost the last 12 months or so. Southbank in particular has been at a very low vacancy rate because of the location. You've got access to public transport, to shops, in particular with the Melbourne Square development with its on-site amenities. You don't need to travel too far to do your shopping. You don't need a car around here. You can do literally everything you need to do on foot. Over the past 12 months, Southbank's units have risen by over 20% in terms of their rental yields. So again, houses a little bit less, but a lot of people here choose to rent for that lifestyle reason. In January this year, we didn't have anything for rent at all in Melbourne Square Stage 1. I'm not sure the current figure there, but again, almost 100% occupancy in our Stage 1 development there. And as I mentioned, restricted supply ahead. It's not just now. We're looking at having restricted supply for the next couple of years as well. Most of our capital cities are in the same position. The population growth is so strong, but we're not delivering as much stock that we need. With Southbank, it's interesting as well that only a bit over 10% of the overall stock supply to Victoria or to Melbourne is in Southbank. Southbank is a very small area by size. It's only 1.7 square kilometres, and it sits right between the Botanic Gardens to the east. To the north, you have the CBD, and to the south, you have South Melbourne. So we can't really grow too much more unless you start going down towards the Docklands precinct and Fisherman's Bend, but that becomes a very different part of Melbourne now. That's a more developing part of Melbourne, whereas Southbank is already sort of at a developed stage. So not much supply. So if you're buying for an investment and there's not much supply coming up in the next couple of years, that can only mean good things for rentals and over time, good things for capital values as well. We just found this particular slide from a development talk that I went to last week actually, that Melbourne has the largest deficit in terms of total dwellings. We have the largest dwellings deficit of any capital city in Australia. In terms of what we're supplying to what we need, Melbourne is looking at about a 78,000 unit or home deficit in the next 12 months. So again, if you're looking for investment and you're looking for something to rent well, have no concerns about really any of our capital cities, but in particularly Melbourne, because of all those lifestyle factors as well. This was taken from a government website that just tracks what's under construction and what's applied for a permit in Southbank. And you can see that the yellow development sites there are what's under construction. Now, the two central sites, the two central or most central areas here, which is these two, these two developments in here are both what's called, this one and this one over here are both what's called as build to rent. So these two particular projects will not be able to be owner occupied. They'll be made available only to the local rental market to try to get some relief for the renters, that they can hopefully have some stock that they can have. It's basically a purpose-built development only for the rental side of things. The other one there is a freehold residential that finishes around about late 2026. And then you've got our Melbourne Square development in here. But there's not a great deal else. When you look at the rest of Southbank here, there's not many vacant sites left. Again, the overall Southbank development area is less than 1.7 square kilometres. So we can't just keep replicating tall buildings. Eventually this area will be developed and you'll have to go further out and further away. Just very briefly on location, I think Angie might cover a bit of this later on as well, but very briefly on the location. If you've been to Melbourne, you've most likely been to Southbank. Southbank has changed a lot in the last 20 years. It was predominantly a warehousing area. It was part of South Melbourne originally, so more an industrial or commercial type area. In the 1960s, the redevelopment started and the National Gallery came into the state. The Victorian College of the Arts then came on board and redeveloped the Arts Centre, and the Crown Casino and Complex came in the mid-90s. On top of that, there's been lots of other major commercial infrastructure that's been developed, but those three were the three main key drivers for Southbank's resurgence. You can see there in 1991, Southbank had less than 100 people living here based on the census. So basically no one lived here. 2001, in 10 years, it went from basically no one to 5,000 people. And then every 5 to 7 years, the population has almost doubled. So again, it's become a very popular inner city residential area, and that hasn't changed in the last 15 years that I've been selling property here in Southbank. It's home to over 1,000 businesses. Over 45,000 people work in Southbank. It's home to over 17% of Melbourne City's population. So a huge amount of people choose to live in this city fringe suburb. In terms of Singapore, it's hard to put a finger on what would this compare to Singapore. It's sort of a combination of living in Orchard, Novena, Shenton Way. It's almost all of those areas in one, because you can walk from Southbank to our Shenton Way district, which is Collins Street. You can walk there in 15 minutes. You can walk to the Orchard area in 10 or 15 minutes. You can walk to the Marina Bay Sands precinct from Southbank in 10 minutes probably. You can't really do that in Singapore. You'd have to take an MRT a couple of stops to get to all those places, but Southbank really enables you to do all of that on foot and to get to all of those major either commercial areas or tourist areas, but you can do it on foot. 60% or more of Southbank residents were born overseas. Half speak a second language at home. And I think the most important point is that last one there. Professional workers. So they have a 40% higher income than Melbourne's average. So you're not targeting just students. If the students all go, we still have a very strong rental market here, because you're really targeting more the white collar professional workers who work in and around the city, and they are your bread and butter rental market. Now, of course, students add to the demand, and it's also good that students choose to live here as well. But 50% of Southbank residents have a university degree already. So you're not targeting someone who's really studying, you're targeting someone who's already studied, they're in a high paying job, and they might be renting for 5, 6, 7 years before they buy their own property. And then when that finishes and they do buy their own, then you're targeting another person who's going through that same cycle. So again, it's very different to, again, somewhere like Singapore, where your condo market is more heavily skewed towards expats or foreigners renting them. And if that part of the market does dry up, then it can sometimes become a little bit harder to find a tenant. Here, the rental market, or the Western style rental market, is such that locals should underpin the strength of the rental market. Locals move out of home early, 21, 22, they rent with their girlfriend or boyfriend or friends, or they're here for work placements as well, but they underpin the local rental market, not just expats, not just foreigners. So it's a different basic fundamental there. Southbank is known as being a walker's paradise. So Southbank is that heavy red area that you can see here. Southbank gets a walk score of over 90. Our particular development, Melbourne Square, has a walk score of about 96. So you can literally do everything you need to do on foot without having to take a car. You're not going to drive from Southbank and drive to your office on Collins Street. It's less than 1 kilometre. You would take a tram, which is right next door, and take the tram into the city and walk to work. If it's a nice day, you would actually walk. I used to live in Southbank. I would walk into the city to get to work. It's a 15, 20-minute walk. It's not as humid as Singapore. So you don't have to worry about building up a sweat or having sweat patches under your arm. Melbourne's a little bit more conducive to walking and to get around on foot. Very briefly, what's happening in Southbank the last couple of years is the major redevelopment of the Arts Precinct. It's a $1.7 billion redevelopment into Australia's leading arts and entertainment precinct. So our National Gallery is being completely redeveloped. They're opening up a whole bunch of outdoor entertaining spaces, basically renovating all of the Arts Precinct's facilities. We're getting a new National Gallery. And the idea was for the Victorian government and for the Arts Precinct is to have the Melbourne Arts Precinct as one of the top 10 arts precincts in the world. And that's a very lofty goal to aspire to when you consider the old cities of the world that have a 1,000 years history. Our city is aiming to be amongst the top 10 in a relatively short period of time. We are already Australia's leading arts precinct. We're just having the Arts and Comedy Festival happening now in Melbourne, and that brings in people from interstate, overseas. It's a huge tourist boost for us. But we're already known as being the leading arts precinct here in Australia. But we're now looking to sort of get onto the international world map in terms of our arts precinct. On top of the redevelopment, there's also a lot of new public spaces being developed. So all of these bordered orange areas are basically being re-landscaped and beautified to make them more green. So the idea was that we bring in the botanic gardens or the greenery into Southbank and not have the area as such a concrete jungle, which can sometimes be the knock on living in the Melbourne CBD or living in Docklands or living in some of those other areas where you don't get much greenery. Melbourne Square has a 1/4 acre park or a 3,800 square metre park directly in front of our development. Again, our development is this shaded grey area. That particular park in the middle here is around about 3,800 square metres. So that's a public amenity, but it certainly adds a lot of appeal to people that live not just in Melbourne Square, but also within the surrounding area. And I think we'll leave Propnex and Angie just to touch on the project and a few of the apartments, but I thank you for your time. And yes, I hope to see you in Singapore in the next couple of weeks. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I guess.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Angie, one of the project IC for Australia Properties. Okay, we just ended the session from Michael. I hope everyone can hear me, yeah? Okay, next speaker that we have online, Dylan, are you online already?
I am Angie. Hi everyone.
Hi Dylan. Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hello. We are very happy to have Dylan Emmett, Director of MSQ Property. Basically, they are a letting firm highly recommended by OSK, who is also managing Melbourne Square Stage 1 East and West Tower rental right now. Okay, so today we have the pleasure of him sharing with us the current market rental in Southbank and especially the performance of East and West Tower. All right?
Correct.
Over to you.
Thanks, Angie. Am I right to share my screen?
I haven't seen your screen yet. Give me a minute. Are you able to share?
It's disabled at the moment.
Oh, give me a minute.
That's okay.
Let me quickly get this sorted.
Thank you. Okay, you can see my screen okay? All right, great. Thanks everyone for allowing us to speak today. I'm Dylan Emmett. I'm Director of Melbourne Square Property, and we're really fortunate to be a dedicated agency that not only works in South Bank, but specifically works in the Melbourne Square precinct and development. And today what I'm going to go over is effectively a few things for you. So the key points today, the market trends that we have in rentals in South Bank, what the renter demand is like in South Bank at the moment, and the profile, which I know Michael touched a little bit on that in his presentation. Melbourne Square's rental performance. So stage one, we can actually review how that's performed within the South Bank rental market and how it compares. And then we'll go on to talk about what the rental estimates are for stage two, as well as what services Melbourne Square Property offer investors and clients, and also what our fees are, how much it costs, and what the investment's going to be to have us work with you, okay? So to kick things off, we'll talk about the South Bank rental statistics. And some really interesting information here. So what we generally find is that the South Bank rental market is a very stable rental market, and we find that residents will generally stay in the area for over 5 years, okay, which is great for stability in the area. In terms of demand at the moment, rental demand in Melbourne is quite strong, and currently in South Bank there's a 24-day period on market. And what that means is that the average for all South Bank properties on the market at the moment is from the day it gets advertised to the day it's leased is 24 days, okay? We've included Melbourne Square statistics here, which is stage one. And you can see there that Melbourne Square actually has a days on market of only 17. So what that effectively means is that investors and landlords in stage one at Melbourne Square are basically getting an extra week's rent, you know, against the normal South Bank market, which really shows how well stage one has performed and how in demand it is. Talking about that rental demand, the vacancy rate in South Bank at the moment is only 0.9%, which is an incredibly low number. It's one of the lowest vacancy rates that we've seen for possibly ever for a very long time. I've been working in 24 years in real estate, and the demand is very, very strong at the moment. What's really interesting about South Bank, and it goes back to residents staying for that 5+ years, is that 38% of all tenancies that are created or started last year, 38% of them were residents that were already living in South Bank, right? So again, that really demonstrates that longevity that people have within staying within South Bank, to have such a high number of local people staying in the precinct itself. Who are the people living in South Bank? That's a really good topic and a good question. And Michael touched on the average age there being 31. And certainly we find that as well, that the majority of people that are living in South Bank and call South Bank home are definitely the younger demographics. Mostly young professionals. There is a good mixture of students and professionals in there, but definitely the majority of renters that we have in South Bank, and certainly stage one in Melbourne Square, are young professionals. And that supports the fact that they're educated. These are people that have done their tertiary studies. They're people that are working generally in higher end work opportunities. So they're very educated people. And also the students generally that we find leasing in South Bank, they're not your first or your second year students. Typically, they are normally going on to do their master's degrees and things like that. So again, it's an educated environment of people that's living in South Bank. Again, they're really career driven. So again, it's those professionals, whether it's finance, information technology. They're probably the two major sectors where we see a lot of residents from, and that's because big business in Melbourne, a lot of those big international companies, their base of operations is on that side of Melbourne CBD. So it works really well as a location. And once again, going back to the locality, the longevity of the people, the 38% of people that have leased in South Bank, it's very much a local environment. So, it's a picture of a car there. Some people do have cars, but a lot of people don't have cars as well, and they don't need the car. And that's the great thing about South Bank is, Michael touched on how accessible everything is, that walking distance, everything there. It just works so well for people that, don't need a car, don't have a car, rely on public transport. And Melbourne has a wonderful public transport system, as we well know. Melbourne Square appeal. So when we talk about stage one, we talk about Melbourne Square, as a precinct as a whole, okay? And what are the reasons why stage one has performed so well? And a lot of it to do is the, the location within South Bank being so accessible, but also the lifestyle that, that Melbourne Square presents to people. Low maintenance, high-end living. It's very much seen as a high-end destination for renters, where, you've got the amenity, you've got the gym, you've got the pool areas, you've got all those common areas, the lounges, etc., the games rooms, the dining areas. Those things all make for such a wonderful community that builds, that people want to live in. Outdoor spaces, I touched on the pool, the garden at the front, something that's, Michael spoke about the greenery in South Bank, and the Melbourne Square precinct have done it so well by having stage one set back with the park at the front. It's a very attractive facade. It's a usable space that we regularly see people, particularly when the sun's shining. It's a sunny day down here in winter in Melbourne. People really get used to those outdoor spaces really, really well. And it encourages a vibrant community. It encourages residents to interact with each other, and creates a very positive culture for residents in the precinct to continue and really want to stay, right? And that's why we look at the rental performance of stage one. And this is really exciting for us because, we are an agency that's dedicated to only working on stage one or Melbourne Square properties, and we'll be extending that to stage two once that comes to fruition in the future. But this is some really good information, guys, to give you an idea on how well Melbourne Square stage one has performed in comparison to the overall South Bank market. You look at the average applications there, 833 applications for Melbourne Square properties against the market average of 72. That's a significant number, which shows how in demand Melbourne Square is. You look at the inquiries, this is over last year, 3,203 inquiries on average. The market average is only 425. So again, that's a big increase in the demand in the inquiry that show that people want Melbourne Square as a destination and stage one as a destination. And those figures are coming off our own portfolio, which is in excess of 250 apartments that we manage. 31, this is really interesting as well. So the last 12 months is the rental price that we've seen in Melbourne Square. So Melbourne Square's increase for one-bedroom apartments has gone up by 31.52%, which is a huge increase. Obviously, it came off the back of some lower rent several years ago, coming out of COVID, but Melbourne Square has bounced back exceptionally well. 21.76% increase for two-bedroom apartments, and then a 12.2% increase for three-bedroom apartments. So you can see there that all typical apartment types have enjoyed some really great growth. Naturally, the one-bedrooms have gone up the most, then the two, then the three-bedroom apartments. And then that leads us to our next slide, which is the actual performance of apartments in South Bank. I'm sure you're thinking, what are the average rents? What are the rents that we're likely to see achieved in stage two once it happens? And we've got some really good numbers here on one-bedroom, two-bedroom, and three-bedroom apartments in what the averages are right now. So in South Bank overall, you can see that the average price for a one-bedroom is $530 per week, and that's climbing at the moment. Melbourne Square stage one, that actually achieves $550 per week. So it's achieving a slightly higher rent than the overall South Bank market. And if you look at stage 2's predictions for when that's finished, with the upward trend that we're seeing, we'd anticipate that to be $600 to $680 per week, depending on the floor plan and property type for the 1 bedrooms. We move to the 2 bedrooms. You can see there once again, the average in South Bank is $680 per week. And stage 1 actually has a 2 bedroom average of $750. So it's significantly outperforming the South Bank market overall by, approximately 10%, which is terrific. And then you look at stage 2, and the starting point that we're seeing for the rent there is already that average at $750. And we believe it'll extend up to that $950 per week for the more premium residents and homes there. Going to the 3 bedrooms, once again, you can see the average is $1,000 per week. Stage 1, again, outperforming the local market by 10% with an average of $1,100. But with that trend continuing to be upward, we anticipate that stage 2 will start at $1,200 per week with the potential up to $1,500, again, for those larger, more premium offerings that stage 2 presents. So that's a bit about South Bank rental market, guys, and I hope that's given you an insight into the quality of not only the residents in South Bank, but also the longevity of those residents and also the demand. And specifically, you've got some really good solid case studies there, so you can specifically see how stage 1 has performed in comparison to the overall South Bank market. And the statistics show that stage 1 is definitely a desirable location for residents, and stage 2 will only expand upon that even further. So Melbourne Square Property, Angie introduced me. I'm a director with my fellow business partner, Baden Lucas. We run an agency that is located actually downstairs at stage 1. So we're the only agent that is on site in Melbourne Square, and we're always going to be on site there in Melbourne Square, right next to Woolworths. And we offer a range of services, but what's really unique is not only do we offer property management, investor and resale services down the track once you've bought your property, we can actually assist you right throughout your pre-settlement process when you have purchased and you're waiting for the property to be finished. So some of those things are assisting with your finance. So what we can actually do is provide you with rental estimates. That's a big bit of information that a lot of finance companies will use if you are getting finance, to understand what the rental return is going to be. So we can provide those letters for your finance. We can actually complete your pre-settlement inspection. So particularly if you're overseas or you can't get to Melbourne or aren't available when the time comes to settle for the property, we actually have a team that's dedicated to complete pre-settlement inspections on your behalf. What that means is we will do it for you. We'll go through, check the whole apartment. If there's anything that needs to be reported, then we go through that process with the developer and the builder to make sure that everything's ready for settlement. And then again, if you're not here and you are looking to lease your property out, we can do your handover, we can organise your keys and make sure that everything is ready to go. So exclusive dedication. So as I said, we're on site. So we're on site now and we're going to be on site right throughout the construction and completion process and thereafter. So again, the benefit is if you, a family member, if you're renter, if you need anything done, we are here every day to be that on-site presence to assist all people that are buying and investing in stage 2. Part of what we do, which is quite unique as well, is because we're on site, because we'll be looking after a number of clients there, is we actually do overall tenancy campaigns. So in addition to having individual marketing campaigns for a single property, we actually do what's called a tenant marketing campaign for the entire development. So that involves us actually marketing stage 2 as a whole to capture as many renters as we possibly can before the property settles. And we're actually able to receive a commitment from many renters, as we've done in the past, to commit before you settle, so that when you settle, that person is ready to pay their money, pay their rent, sign their lease and move into the property as close to settlement as possible. If you need assistance with blinds and window furnishings, if that's something that you haven't bought with your property or optioned in, we can help coordinate quotations for that and schedules for that so that we can have those blinds installed in time for your tenant to move in. And again, going on that campaign I spoke about with Melbourne Square Property, you actually get priority access for your property to be leased out and committed to by a renter before settlement, and no other agency can offer you that sort of service. And then it goes on to our traditional services, which are post-settlement. Once you own the property and you have a renter there, we'll work with you to give you all the information you need to understand what the rental price and potential is of your property. Every year in Victoria, you are permitted to increase or review your rent. And our process is very much to go through that, an educational process to review what your rent has been for the last 12 months, look at what the market's doing, look at what stage 2 and stage 1 rental performance is, because as we've gone over, typically the prices that we are seeing in Melbourne Square Precinct is higher than South Bank overall, and adjust that rent in 12 months as required. Simplifying your taxation. So not only do we pay your rent for you, but we can actually manage all of your ingoings and outgoings when it comes to the property. What that means is all your outgoing rates, anything that you need organised, you can actually have that directed to our accounting team, and they will actually ensure that everything is looked after and all your income, all your expenses that are related to the property and the tenancy are in one simple place, and that's with us. And every financial year, we'll provide you with a detailed summary of all your income and also expenditure as well. Superior maintenance of repairs. So we've got great experience with stage 1. We work really closely with the builders, and that'll continue in stage 2. So we work very, very closely with the builders to ensure that if there's anything that needs to be attended to after you've settled, we're here. We've got great experience doing that, and we'll coordinate that for you. We've got flexible options as well. We understand that people have different requirements. So we've got several packages to choose from our service offering, but we're able to actually tailor our service to what your requirements are. So we can really work in with what you need. We'll listen to what your needs are and make sure that we're fulfilling those needs for you. As I said, we're a permanent on-site office. Our office is downstairs. So if you're ever visiting Melbourne or down in Melbourne and that's at the Melbourne Square area, drop in and say hello, because we're downstairs always. And this is a summary of our services and what we actually do. So that exclusive offer, it says today, but that's applicable for anyone that's part of what we're doing today in the future. So if you were here, our details will be put up, and Angie will be able to send those around as well. But that's effectively what our management packages do. So, we will inspect your properties twice per annum. We'll coordinate all your rent, manage all your tenancy requirements, and everything's there. So again, that's some information which the guys have got that we can send around to everyone for you to review. There's my details there. I need a bit of a haircut. It's a bit longer than the photo. But yeah, I hope that was some good information for everyone. Feel free to add us to WhatsApp. We're on WeChat or WhatsApp or email or call. And Baden and I would love to help if we can help in any way.
Thank you, Dylan, for the sharing.
My pleasure.
It's good to hear that the rental inquiries is really outperforming as compared to other developments in South Bank, and then the 1-bedrooms rental increase is almost 30%.
Yeah, Angie, the one bedroom market is a extremely strong market for rentals, and it goes to show, because it's the entry point, right? It's the most affordable entry point for people into the rental market here, and right throughout South Bank, right throughout stage 1, the demand's been great for all property types, but in particular that 1-bedroom market, younger people as well, have really gravitated towards driving that growth there for those 1-bedroom properties.
All right, thank you so much, Dylan. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
I'm going to take over the screen again.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Pardon, bear with me, yeah. I'm trying to just. All right. Okay, thank you everyone again. Thanks for staying through from 11 a.m. till now. I'm very mindful of our time. I hope to finish this within the next 10 to 15 minutes. So Michael from OSK has covered the portion on why Melbourne, why South Bank, and we have good market support, market trend support from the MSQP, the local letting firm, giving us good rental performance of Melbourne Square, stage 1. Sorry. Okay, all right. Can everyone see my screen? All right, can everyone see my screen? Just want to make sure all is good.
Yeah, I can see it, Angie. Yep.
I'm not very good with this Zoom thing. Okay, thank you everybody. Cool. I want to quickly go through the project itself. Okay, we are talking about BLVD, which is stage 2 of Melbourne Square. Okay, I'm going to show with you a short clip, which is like 3 minutes, that will give you the key highlights of the project.
Looking for an apartment in South Bank, then you've probably heard of Melbourne Square. $2.8 billion master plan precinct by OSK Property. OSK Property has been on a mission to bring one of the most desirable precincts the capital has ever seen since they started developing Melbourne Square in 2017. The latest stage, Boulevard, has continued OSK Property's commitment to sustainability, style, and livability. We were recently invited to the Boulevard display suite on site at 29 Balston Street to look at the project in more detail. Boulevard will soar 73 levels into the sky from its Hoff Boulevard address in the heart of Melbourne Square. It's been designed by Cox Architecture as a geometrically intricate curved building, which allows a number of the apartments to enjoy uninterrupted views across the CBD, towards the Royal Botanic Gardens, Albert Park Lake, and Port Phillip Bay. Being situated in Melbourne Square means we're also within walking distance to the Arts Precinct, Flinders Station, and the South Melbourne markets. OSK Property had one of Melbourne's most decorated design firms, CAR, craft the interiors of the apartments. CAR Managing Director Chris McHugh says the residences capture beautifully restrained and timeless interior architecture. From the one-bedroom apartments all the way to the largest apartment in the building, every fixture and fitting has been considered. As standard, gallery residence kitchens will feature integrated Bosch appliances, from ovens and cooktops to dishwashers and range hoods. The premium apartments in the Domain collection will feature Gaggenau appliances, natural stone splashbacks and bench tops in the kitchens, as well as natural stone floors and bench tops in the bathrooms, with toilets by premium bathroom retailer Toto. CAR has offered residents a choice of colour palettes, dawn or dusk for the gallery residences, and a choice of the coastal or botanic colour schemes for the Domain residences. CAR and Cox Architecture also combined to cleverly design a handful of loft-style residences, something which is not only unique to Melbourne Square, but is a rare offering across the whole of Melbourne. While the first 2 towers in Melbourne Square are laden with facilities, OSK Property has arguably gone a step further up Boulevard. They've created more than somewhere to live, they've created a true lifestyle. Boulevard will benefit from Melbourne Square's established precinct, which is already home to a full-line Woolworths supermarket, a BWS bottle shop, restaurant, cafe, a childcare centre, and a 3,745 square metre park. As part of the health and wellness offering in Boulevard, a level 8 podium homes a gym with state-of-the-art equipment, a 25-meter swimming pool, spa, and a sauna. There's even a Zen garden with alfresco dining and barbecue facilities, plus shaded seating areas surrounded by native plants. Residents can golf in any weather with the golf simulator, while movie nights can be booked at the on-site cinema room. And singing karaoke will no doubt provide entertainment on a weekend for residents and guests at Boulevard. 55th level is occupied by the Horizon dining rooms with unbeatable views over Melbourne. On the 55th and 56th floors is the co-porter co-working space with a choice of meeting rooms, individual pods, and a breakout area to work from whilst enjoying inspiring views over the bay. Also on level 55 is the Sky Club for the exclusive use of premium residences located on levels 56 and above. Here, you'll find a luxurious lounge with cocktail bar, a private dining room, and another gym. There's also pet grooming facilities, book clubs, personal training services, and more to enhance a resident's lifestyle at Boulevard. All of the facilities in Boulevard can be booked through the resident app. Through the app, residents can also access other services such as parcel collection, dog walking, food delivery, and cleaning services. Smart technology features throughout the Boulevard apartments, which have been designed specifically with sustainability in mind. It is actually one of the first residential projects in Australia to register to pursue WELL certification for healthy living. Apartments have been designed for optimum access to natural light, thermal comfort, and indoor quality, while the amenities, focusing on social, fitness, and mental well-being, also contribute to residents' health. Construction of Boulevard is planned to commence in the first quarter of 2024, with completion estimated for early 2027. OSK was founded in 1997 in Malaysia and has won a string of awards for their developments in both Malaysia and Australia. Melbourne Square itself has already won the Best Mixed-Use Development and the Best High-Rise Architecture Award at the Asia Pacific Property Awards in 2020. Locally, Melbourne Square has been a finalist at the UDIA Awards for Excellence in 2021 and the Property Council Australia Award in 2022. If you're interested in buying a Boulevard apartment, inquire through a
All right, that's the video I'd like to share with all of you. Okay, right now we are looking at the bird's eye view of the location. As you can see, this is where the gold flashy building are, right? It's Melbourne Square. Two of the blocks, which is East Tower and West Tower, has already been completed. And we're talking about BLVD residence, which is the third tower. As you can see, it's taller than the other two. We are in very close proximity to the CBD. It's about 1.5 meter to Flinders Station, as you can see, which is this part. This will be the Melbourne CBD, and this area, it's all clustered under South Bank, all right? We are also very close to the Albert Park, Royal Botanical Gardens, and also the Arts Precinct. And probably less than 3 or 5 minutes walk away, the University of Melbourne South Bank campus is within like 5 minutes walk, all right? Okay, let's look at the Melbourne Square master plan. So this is a 2.8 billion master plan precinct by a Melbourne Square developer, which is OSK. The entire land site is 5 acres, which is about 20,000 square meter, all right? So as you can see, this is stage 1, stage 2, and then we're looking at stage 3, BLVD right now. And on our left, which is a purpose-built tower, which means the whole entire building is solely for rental. There is no private ownership of this building, all right? And right in front of BLVD, there's also a site that's for future release. It is likely to be a hospitality product and also private residences, okay? And on site, we are very excited to share that there is so many amenities on site. First and foremost, we have one of the biggest double-story Woodsworth at Melbourne Square. This means that giving immediate amenities and convenience to residents of BLVD, all right? And of course, we have bottle shop. If you want to like have drink, wine down, this you can get, you know, a bottle just at doorstep. And being an Asian developer, of course, we also have Asian grocery stores on site. And other than that, we have cafes, in-house stand-off cafes that you can enjoy, like a breakfast, brunch. We also have an Asian hometown delights where you can get to enjoy Asian food as well. And on site, we also have this Nido Early School that is to provide like early educations for tenants or residents who are starting their family, with young kids, so they can actually send their kids on site for early education. Okay, so looking at the site plan, I just want to give you a quick overall outlook. Even though this is a master plan of like 5 to 6 towers in place, right? It is positioned to have pocket views of the different views, like in Docklands, CBD, Botanical Garden, and then towards the south and west view of Port Phillips Bay. So this will be a very interesting developments with range of the different kinds of views that you can enjoy. Okay, we're going to look at BLVD. Okay, this is the latest launch that we're going to have on the 11th and 12th May. So let me just quickly go through the breakdown of the building for all of you. So at the ground level, it's all the all the amenities where the concierge cafe retail is. And from level 1 to level 6, that's the parking. Residential will start on level 7. We have garden terrace, loft unit from level 9 to level 12. Gallery residence, which is one of the most hot selling apartments that we have in BLVD, from level 13 to level 54. And on level 55 and 56, that's where the Sky Terrace, Sky facilities are. And the premium apartments are located on level 56 all the way till penthouses level 72 and 73. All right. Okay, let's look at the facility quickly. On level 8, we have the Podium Club. There you have a 25-meter indoor heated swimming pool. You have spa, sauna. You have also a state-of-art gym equipment. You have a golf simulator, a cinema, a karaoke room, a very luxurious lounge, and also an open garden for al fresco dining, barbecue facilities, all on the level 8 Podium Club. All right. And at level 55, that's where the Sky Club is. So Sky Club is rather unique. It is exclusive to owners of the premium apartments, meaning that people who bought the owners of domain residents and also the penthouses. Having said that, all other residents can also enjoy the booking a dining room of the 2 dining lounges at level 55 as well. We do have also a co-working space called co-quarter, where you have lounge, meeting rooms, co-working desks. The fact that we are situated so near to the CBD, the development itself also provide work from home facilities that you can just do your work from the apartment, from the building, and only go for important meetings at the CBD. All right. So the co-working space is actually double floor. So on the level 56, you have more co-working desks, meeting rooms, breakout zone, and also your own private kitchenette. Okay, so these are some CGIs of the facilities. So there you have the indoor pool, and out you can see the podium, the guardian that's out here. Okay. And all right, this is the chill lounge at podium level 8. As you can see, the gym. I'm going to quickly go through this: the golf simulator, the karaoke room, the cinema room, the outdoor podium. Okay, and this is on level 55. This is exclusively for the Sky Club premium apartment owner. And you have dining rooms. This is also open to all residents of BLVD. This is an outlook of the co-working space. As you can see, it's double floor. So this spiral staircase brings you up to level 56. All right. Okay, quickly, let's look at the price guide for this project. Okay, I'm going to go break down into the prices based on the type of residence. So penthouses are unreleased. Okay, then we have the premium apartment, which is domain residence from level 62 to 71. As you can see, the 2-bedroom starts from 1.58 million Aussie dollars, okay? And the 3-bedroom starts from 2.8 million Aussie dollars, okay? Having said that, units are also well taken locally. So the locals, Australians are actually buying the bigger and the higher floors apartment for BLVD. And then addition residence is unreleased at the moment. We do have the top seller range, which is gallery residence from level 13 to 54. We have just recently closed 2 units before the event. Okay, most of them are either a 1 or 2-bedroom. As you can see, the price, entry price range is very, very affordable. 1 bedroom is only for 571,000 Aussie dollar, which is probably equivalent to like maybe 500 Sing dollars. Okay. And canopy residence is from level 9 to level 12. This is a very unique type of layout, which is loft unit. As you can see, the 1 bedroom, it's almost a 2-bedroom price in gallery residence. Okay, so let's all focus on gallery residence, which is the typical unit layout. And it has very good price entry for most investors. Okay, so this is the, this is the typical layout of gallery residence for each level. Okay, it's 11 apartments. We have a good mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 2 bed, 2 bath, and exclusively only 1 stack of 3 bedroom. So let's look at some of the choice unit here. So the 1 bedroom size is about 50 square meter. The most value price that we have right now for 1 bedroom is it's at 571,000, approximately 513,000 Sing dollars. Okay, the estimated rental yield is per week is at 580 to 620. So this will bring us a good gross yield of 4.8%. Okay. Then of course we have also 2 bedroom. This 2 bedroom is a dual perspective, has a dual perspective. As you can see, you have a look towards the north side and also the northeast direction. You have a bit of the city CBD view and also portion view of the West Tower that's beside us. Okay, and then looking down, it's the Kennedy Park, which is the 3,000 square meter of green parkland that's situated in the development. So we have lovely view. In fact, Stack 10 is a very popular unit selection for overseas investors. Okay, we have partners that sold quite a number of units in Stack 10. And of course, if you like to go for even better view, the 2 bedrooms at 53 level, it's now at the price of 1 million. So the gross rent will probably be around 3.9%. I would suggest that look at the price entry so that your returns are higher. I would highly recommend the 1 bedroom or the 2 bedroom Stack 10. Okay. And of course, this is the one and only stack of 3 bedroom in BLVD. Okay, the entry prices for 23rd floor, it's at 1.3 million, which is still pretty affordable in Singapore context, right? Because it's only 1.2 million Sing dollar, which we barely can't get anything near to the city freehold in Singapore context. Okay, specification and fittings, right? So what does the unit comes with? It's fully fitted. You have the induction cooktop, hood, oven, dishwasher, and of course, very nice porcelain stone bench top. It's well fitted with cabinetry in the kitchen and also in the room. For flooring wise, okay, it's laminate timber in the living and dining and carpet in the bedroom. Okay, it has a good high ceiling of 2.7 meter, and all the glasses are double glazed, so you kind of like ward off any kind of the noise if you may have in this area. All right. Okay, 2 schemes that you can pick from, which is the dusk and the dawn scheme. Most of the clients pick dawn skin, having said that, because it gives a brighter and a bigger perspective of the unit. All right, this is the rental estimate. I'm sure that Dylan has already gone through earlier, so I'm going to skip this. And these are the important informations for foreigners investing in Australia. I thought that we should go through this. Okay, so a few important points to note. Number one, for foreigners to buy or invest in Australia property, right? We need to submit an application which is known as Foreigner Investment Review Board, FIRB. And this typically means that as a foreigner, we can only buy or get approval for investment property that is brand new or vacant land to build a new property. So foreigner, we can't buy established dwelling. We can't buy anything that's secondhand. All right. Of course, there are certain cases whereby foreigner person who are temporarily residents may apply for approval to purchase a established dwelling, meaning it's a completed product, secondary product. But having said that, you can only buy it for own stay, and you're required to sell when you no longer stay in that dwelling. Okay. FIRB charges, yes, we apply and we need to pay some fees to the government. So it's based on the fees charges is typically based on the property price. All right. For any property 1 million or below, we have to pay like a fee of 14,100. From 1 million to 2 million, we pay a FIRB application of 28,200. So most of the Singaporean investors, typically they go for investment property value less than $1 million, right? And yes, this is also one charge that I'd like to share, which is the foreign citizen stamp duty. So on top of the usual stamp duty that all property buyers have to pay, right? Foreigners will have to pay an extra 8% foreigner surcharge when they buy any property in the Victoria state. As you can see, different states in Australia charges different foreigner surcharge. So if you're talking about properties in Melbourne, in Sydney, the additional surcharge is 8%. But having said that, the total stamp duty applicable, which is around 5.5 plus the 8%, is only 13.5%. Again, that is a lot more attractive than the 20 plus 4% when the Singaporeans buy a second property in Singapore. Okay, this is a summary that I'd like to share. What are the other associated costs that comes with investing into Australia property? So there's 3 stages. One is upon acquisition. Number 1, you have to pay the stamp duty. You have to pay the foreigner surcharge, and also mortgage fee if you were to take a loan of this property purchase. Obviously, there's legal fee and also the FIRB fee that I've mentioned earlier. All right, these are during the purchase. And retaining costs. So what happens when you rent? What are the fees that you need to be mindful of? Number 1, owner's corp. So owner's corp is like our MCST equivalent, all right? And then we have rates. Rates are like a kind of town council equivalent in Singapore context that we pay to the government for the provision of providing clean waters, keeping the community, the open areas, upkeeping of open areas. So this is a small fee as well. And of course, when you rent, you receive income, then obviously you will have to pay rental income tax. Okay, the numbers might seem a little bit alarming on the screen right now. You see like a minimum 32.5%. Having said that, there's a lot of tax deductibles when coming to claim with rental income. So we will introduce a qualified tax consultant to our clients where they will better manage the income receivable and then ensure that whatever that can be deductible are deducted expenses to reduce the rental income that you have to pay, rental income tax that you have to pay. And of course, letting and management fee has shared earlier by Dillian, right? The typical fees of letting and management in Melbourne range from 5 to 7%. And of course, there's also another fee that we have to be mindful of, which is absentee owner surcharge. Right now, today, as of this year, the surcharge is 4% of taxable land value. This applies for apartments and also houses in Australia. But having said that, apartments, right, the land value are somehow apportioned. It doesn't have that has huge land value as the house. So this in terms like investing into property versus house, your cost, your retaining cost might be more attractive or lower as compared to investing in a house in Australia. Okay, and then disposal cost. So what happens when you sell the property, right? Number one, yes, there is capital gain tax, which is tax to the rental income tax. All right, and then of course there's also applicable legal fee. Agent fee locally range about 1.5%. So these are the few costs and expenses that you need to be mindful of when you invest into a Australia property. All right, the exciting part, sales incentive for PropNext client. Okay, from yesterday, 1st May, all the way till 12th May, which our event will be on the 11th and 12th. Clients now, when they purchase a unit for BLVD, right, they can choose not just one, but two of the following upgrades at no additional cost. All right, so we have developers providing manual roller blinds, a washer cum dryer, integrated fridge, or you have the option to choose integrated fridge or upgrade your kitchen appliances. So instead of choosing one option, you get two. All right, you can choose 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, but the most popular option I would recommend would be 1 and 2. This way, your unit is almost fully finished. All right, and of course, we have free FIRB fee at 14,100. All right. Recall that I've just mentioned that when you buy any foreigners that buy a property in Australia, you need to apply for FIRB. So good news, a developer is in a way absorbing the FIRB cost of 14,100 for any property that's below 1 million. Okay, so next step, how do we reserve a unit? First, number one, choose your choice unit. Look for Australia tagger, let them help you choose your choice unit. Fill up a reservation form, contract request form. We will need documents like identity card, passport, and pay a reservation fee of $2,000 to PropNext International and buyer to appoint a solicitor. So this is the few simple steps to reserve a unit in BLVD. This is also important, payment milestone. So what happens when I reserve? What's the amount of money that I need to pay? So bear with me because it's a bit dry. So let's say if you were to reserve a unit today, all right, we'll pay PropNext International $2,000 fully refundable for holding the unit for 3 working days. All right, and within the 3 working days from reservation date, the developer will prepare the contract to the buyer and send to the buyer and buyer solicitor. Buyer solicitor will then arrange a Zoom meeting with the buyer to review and sign the contract. This means that you don't even need to fly down to Australia to buy a property. Okay, and within 5 working days from signing the contract, buyer then pay a 10% to developer solicitor trust account, and of course the respective legal fee to the solicitor. I would like to share that, in buying an Australia property, the good news is it's only a very low deposit of 10%. Developer can only collect no more than 10% from buyer. Okay, so this means that your capital outlay is really low as investors. From now till Q1 2027, you can still save up or have your funds put on other investment that will bring you even higher returns, and then come completion, make the payment back to the projects itself. Okay, and notice of handover. So come Q2 2027, what's going to happen is you will then pay the remaining balance of 90% to the developer. If you need to apply for mortgage, do apply 3 to 6 months in advance. Okay, so whatever the loan amount that it's issued by the lenders, you just need to pay the outstanding remaining balance to the developer. Okay, So buyer has to pay the remaining legal fee to solicitor. There's some adjustments like prorated property tax, prorated water charges, and the NCST equivalent. There's this fee called the land title registration fee, which is probably around 2,000 to 2.5. And the stamp duty that I mentioned earlier, 5.5% and 8% foreigner surcharge is only payable upon completion. All right, so your initial down payment, your initial outlay of capital, it's only 10% and strictly 10% plus the legal fee. Okay, very low entry price. So now I'm coming to my the last few slides. Very important slide. I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you must invest or your client invest in BLVD Melbourne. All right, number one, we can take advantage of a strong Sing dollar, which is now worth like 1.13 Aussie dollars, okay? So make the Sing dollars work harder for you, right? And then number two, population growth means increased demand for housing. As what Mike have mentioned, Melbourne is Australia's largest metropolitan population and is on track to grow from 5.3 million to 6 million people by 2035. All right, and then restricted supply. Okay, we have seen there's also limited approval in South Bank for new developments, meaning there will be limited availability of good projects and then longer approval process. So it will be shortages of apartments in South Bank. Potential tenant pool. Again, Melbourne is Australia education capital. So every year, more than 170,000 international students come from 170 countries to study in Victoria and Melbourne specifically. So this is your pool of evergreen tenants, okay? Evergreen rental opportunity where the vacancy rate in South Bank is as low as 0.9%. And I would like to share this again. Back in 1 or 2 years in Singapore, remember that we were increasing our rent 50–80% to our tenants because of the shortage of apartments in Singapore. At its peak, the vacancy rate in Singapore is only 6%. So can you imagine at a vacancy rate of 0.9%, more people are coming to rent your one unit in South Bank, in BLVD, okay? And of course, this is a quality property in an award-winning development by OSK, part of a 2.8 billion master plan precinct. You get to enjoy free FIRB fee of 14,100 and additional perks of choosing to upgrade instead of one. Wealth preservation. Again, I like to emphasize this is freehold property from only 850,000 Sing dollars PSF to maybe 1,005 PSF. As all of you know that even the latest EC in Singapore, the PSF starts from the range of 1,400 and 1,400 PSF. All right, so this is a very value investment in my opinion. You're only buying a freehold property from 850 PSF onwards. Okay, again, there's no ABSD, no TDSR if you take a loan from the broker, from the lenders in Australia, all right, and no seller stamp duty. Okay, and last but not least, very low upfront capital outlay. It's only 10% to book a unit. Okay, I hope I give you enough reasons to ponder and think about why invest in BLVD Melbourne. Now, important dates. Okay, come 11 and 12, which is the following weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we have a hotel event, a launch event where the developers will come down, the mortgage broker, the solicitor will be on site on the event to give advice and sharing the updates on Melbourne rental property and the market trends. So please reach out to your clients, and then you can generate exclusive link and invite template from our business suite app and register them through the link. All right. last but not least, please please join our Australia team hyperchat group to get more information about all our Australia projects. And also, this is our team of Australia consultant. They are very familiar with Australia. In fact, most of them stay in parts of Australia before, so they will be very well versed to help you and your client get the best unit in BLVD. All right. Any questions? Hello, hello. Or is everyone out for lunch already? All right, we come to the end of the sharing. Please, if there's any questions, just turn on just unmute yourself and feel free to ask. All good? Oh, it's only no problem. I'm gonna just keep this slide here. Please join our hyper chat. All right, and then please also reach out to all your clients. I want to re-emphasize it's only 850 PSF Sing dollar for owning a freehold property, which is 1.5 kilometer to Melbourne CBD. Okay, if you are new to overseas projects, you're also most welcome to come down on the 11th and 12th to find out for yourself why so many Singaporeans are buying into overseas property. Okay, no questions? Really? All right. Okay, I'm going to stop share now. Thank you. Bye-bye.